Hello, my name is Linda Grahovec, and I am Senior Vice President and National Agency Director of Education, Marketing Strategy, and Agency Communications for the F&F family of companies. Some of the pillars have minor changes, but 3 of them have significant updates since 2020. I am sure you will agree that the world has changed in the last 3 years, and these changes have affected the financial services industry. Please understand that ALTA best practices is just that, best. Not good, not better, but the best. F&F has been involved in the evolution of these best practices and has used them and enhanced them for our own use, both transactionally and for establishing national agency audit standards of practice. So let's dive into these new ALTA best practices with this introduction. As described by ALTA, these best practices do 3 main things: financial security, data security, and operational stability. Also, ALTA best practices provides lenders with the assurance of their needs are being fulfilled in a transaction. Now, ALTA best practices can also be a marketing tool for you. So think about that when you're putting them together, updating them, or just simply updating your written policies and procedures. Now, there have been several FAQs with regards to ALTA best practices. If you're brand new to the industry, some of this might be interesting for you. ALTA.org does have, I think, 3 or 4 different pages of FAQs, but these are the main ones. So what are the best practices? Why did ALTA develop these best practices? Why are these best practices mandatory for some companies and not for others? How were the best practices developed? So these are all things that we are gladly here to provide you this information. So this gives you a little bit of a background and a little bit of the history of what ALTA best practices were all about. Dodd-Frank and the Consumer Financial Protection Act. These were 2 areas that really were the foundation for ALTA best practices. But I will tell you, best practices was already in the works even before Dodd-Frank or the establishment of the CFPB. The ALTA board approved the very first best practices version back in December 2012, and it was published in January of 2013. Yes, 10 years ago. Updates to these best practices have come around in several different versions. Version 2.0 in 2013, 2.5 in 2016, 3.0 in 2019, and in 2022, some updated versions as well, and January of 2023, version 4.0. So it's coming out and it's going into effect in 2023. F&F has taken these updates and additions and have added them into our audit reviews, and we've also created do-it-yourself materials and resources for you and your company to create or kind of put together your own written policies and procedures that you can attest to for your lender or market to your consumers. It's called the F&F Best Practices Portfolio Builder. And you know what? We've had these for 10 years, but now they are updated for 2023. So number 1, you want to talk the talk, but number 2, you want to walk the walk. So that is why you really need written policies and procedures. So where do you find these? So I will tell you there are 2 parts to the Best Practices Portfolio Builder accessible through the National Agency website. There is the public area and then the private area. Let's kind of go through where it's all at. So if you go to our National Agency website, which is nationalagency.fnf.com, you will see a tab called Agent Success Tools. You will look in the drop-down and you see Best Practices Portfolio Builder. You're going to be in the right place. So when you go to that page, you will see something very similar to this. You'll see a comprehensive plan. You'll see all 7 pillars. And within each of them, there'll be little areas that go to guidelines and preferred vendor relationship to help you get to those ALTA best practices, as well as our own F&F audit standards. If you're not logged in, this is the public, open to the public everyone can access this basic information and a self-assessment. So this is non-password protected. So the upper right-hand corner of the website doesn't have your name on it. Kind of look like this screen. If you go in without a login, you're going to see a couple really great resources. Not only great information on those 7 pillars, some basic information, as well as third-party vendors that can get you there, but you will also see a survey and assessment and a copy of the ALTA Best Practices Framework. What you will also see at the very bottom of that screen is, want to create your own policies and procedures? You got to log in. So that's where the password protected area comes in. Open only to you as our agent partner, not only basic information and a self-assessment, but also all these do-it-yourself materials, guides, and resources. Yes, it's behind the password curtain. Why? Because it's proprietary information just for you, our agent partners. So once you log into the national agency website or through your Agent Tracks login, you'll see your name on that upper right-hand corner. You know you are logged in. You will also see at the very bottom, instead of, hey, log in, but click here to download documentation. So that's what you'll be able to do. Click on that link and you will have access to all the information on each of those pillars. All right, so it's not cumulative, one document for all 7, but each pillar, click on the link for that particular pillar and it brings you to that document. For example, with pillar number 4, this is a 22-page document. I've only put like 2 on the screen here, but you can download these Word documents within this pillar. And what you could do is you can copy and paste it. You can utilize it as your own. You can edit it for different offices or branch operations, depending on the geography, or maybe different policies and procedures, depending on where you are, where you do closings, things like that. So how to use the Best Practices Portfolio Builder. Watch the introductory video, this one, right? And then watch each of the 7 pillar videos that we've put into our national lead venue. Make a plan to start with the shorter ones, maybe pillars 1, 6, and 7, or jump in maybe after or during, if you want to go in the same order, if you want to go in order of difficulty, into the larger pillars, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5. I will tell you, number 3 is probably the most challenging because it has to do a lot with data privacy, information security, cyber, and fraud. Then the Best Practices Portfolio contains the following tools for you: considerations, resources, samples. So you watch for each of those for each of the 7 pillars. To give you an example, this is considerations. We first list out the procedures under the best practices. Then in italics, we have developed questions about those best practices to help you develop your best practices. These questions are not exhaustive, and you should be able to develop your own questions to fit your title agency's needs. After our questions, we have potential resources for you. These can include potential vendors you may want to vet or use or sample our own documents that you could potentially aid you when you develop your own best practices. We provide you with your next steps to take for each pillar to complete your own best practices tailored just for your company. As a friendly reminder, the information provided in the sample documents is for your reference only. It is not intended to represent the only approach to any particular issue. These guidelines should not be construed as legal advice, financial, or business advice, and you should consult legal counsel and subject matter experts to determine the appropriate policies, procedures, and strategies applicable to your office or organization. FNF Lead, we have our national lead platform, and this is a link to it, or you can bookmark directly to the main page, lead.fnf.com. You have access to 2 different venues, your local and regional venue, as well as this national venue. Also, our national agency website, we have pages dedicated to risk management, our digital closing hub, or several F&F applications. You know, there is a difference between education and training. Education is simply a transfer of knowledge, but training improves job performance. So it's a win-win for both the individual employee as well as your company if both are focused on. Thank you so much for being here today, and I really look forward to being able to assist you in the future.